Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Social Pillar. Once again, we are back. We are here, and we are talking about the wonderful hobby of tabletop role-playing games. Joining me, as always, is the wonderful Ian. How are you, sir?
I'm well, mate. Thank you. Very good to be here. This is Ian Zammit, for those of you who don't know, from Roleplay Experience, bringing people together through role-playing games, one table at a time. We're all forever GMs here, and we are missing Thea today. We're hoping she's going to be joining very soon, fingers crossed. Yeah, we're basically talking about the crafts, cultures, and communities around role-playing games. Jared, it's good to see you, mate, and really keen to jump into this topic as well. So, yeah, do you want to kick it off, intro and everything?
Absolutely. So, we before we do get started, we'd like to acknowledge that we are coming to you from Aboriginal land. I'm coming to you from Ku-ring-gai land. We would like to acknowledge that there are traditional custodians of the land that we are streaming to you from. Pay our respects to elders past and present, and extend those respects to any First Nations people who are watching around the globe. We are talking deeply about a topic. We touched on it last week. We said that we were talking about vetting players and how we need to respect our time and each other's space and things. And while I think we all kind of recoiled a little bit at how that sounded, vetting players, and it is a very DM focused opinion or statement. I think we both agree. We have spent the week reflecting and kind of introspectively going into what does that actually mean, because it has a connotation, I think, of elitism and in terms of the hobby being as big as it is, 50 years on for Dungeons and Dragons alone. We have definitely, and as veteran game masters ourselves, we've definitely seen a lot, and we've gone through a lot, and we've grown a lot. And that's not to say that there hasn't been a history of gatekeeping and elitism and this idea that, especially in early editions, I think, where you needed to really have a grasp of complex, nuanced rules. And I can understand where a mindset may develop where it's, okay, well, we're not really prepared to take on a newbie because we love just playing and we're not prepared to teach anyone new. That is the absolute antithesis of my opinion, which is, you don't know? Let me be your guide. So, yeah, we definitely wanted to just very respectfully and tactfully talk about, I guess, our journeys and how we feel the right mindset could and should be. Thoughts and feelings, Ian?
Yeah, thanks for bringing up. Particularly, we had a really big chat actually after this, and thanks to everyone in the chat. We're very keen. We're going to be talking a bit about our experiences, about what it's like. What do we consider when it comes to bringing players into our game, whether it's people we know very well or those that are new to a group. A big hi to Snyder Nix, to Sammy Silk, Jason VDM, and everyone who's in our chat as well. We're glad you're here, and we'd love to hear your thoughts as well and experiences, because we're coming in to talk about what it's, just bringing it back to your point, Jared, about the idea of vetting players. There's an elitism behind that, and it feels a little less inclusive. And it was funny because I'd been thinking about it even after we had said it, and just thought there's something about this that doesn't ring true, because it's not about, I'm not, as a GM, for me, it's not about me deciding who gets to play in my game. I think there's actually, the premise of this is flawed. It's not my game. This is our game. And I don't know who's going to come on board. I hope, and I wanted to to deconstruct that and start from scratch, because I think there can be that context around it. So if we have that, I think this is the time we have that time to talk about this. So to begin, just looking at it from the way I look at things, when I'm looking to bring a group on board and I've got a really good idea, or I think it's a good idea, anyway, I have no idea, but want to bring a game together, and it can be something to do with, we love talking about Curse of Strahd, so I'm going to bring that one in. Let's say it was Curse of Strahd game, but I wanted to do it just as over a mini sort of thing. and have a group of players who want to play a Gothic style of game of adventure with a little bit of that thrown in. And I'm thinking about, okay, who would want to be part of this? The things I think about are then I've got to have a clear understanding of what I want out of it before anything else happens. What are my expectations for a game? Because it can be something that's going to be for a group of players that I know really well. And if that's the case, I already know there's a bunch of people I'm already considering for a game. This is actually very related to when it comes to doing things like theatre or any group artistic collaboration. It's someone who's pulling something together. Who do you want to work with and why? If you've got people who you've got in mind, like I had for, say, something like this, then I'd be thinking about, well, what do I expect at the table? And having a really clear understanding of what I want first is so crucial, because I am a player like the players who are coming in. And there may be some unconscious things that I have coming into a game. And I don't want to be too unconscious about that in some ways, because there's certain responsibilities I feel that a GM has, and that's also making a safe space and making a welcoming space and making it a creative space. So I'm starting to think that's some of the considerations I have for how I want the table to be and how I'd want to set it up. And also what I'd want to say to people who I'm engaging with the game, to say, guys, here's some of the things I think about. I think about what's the story, of course. What's the story I want to play? What world's it going to be in? How long is it going to go for? Like, how long are sessions and how long is the whole campaign going to go for? Is it an ongoing one that can go forever, or is it like we've got a tight 2 hours or something like that? What rules are we playing? And being very clear about that. Keeping it either really light and flexible, or saying, no, this has got a very clear basic set of rules of like this, so that we understand where we're coming in. And then it comes to behavior. And it sounds a heavy thing, and it doesn't need to be. For me, it's simply about, what do I want at the table? I want to play with people that like to play with me and that I like to play with. But it's not about liking people. It's about what behavior do we expect, I feel like, at the table. How can I set that up? And for me, there are things like, I have 3 particular things. One I talk about is it feels safe. I feel safe to play with the people who are sitting across from me. I don't feel like this is uncomfortable. This is a bit of a clash of personalities. But generally saying that feels like that, we're going to be respectful to each other is a really important thing. And I really like that. So safety at a table is a big thing. Another thing for me is about fairness. And that means that we know where the rules are, that everyone knows that it's fair. So it's fun. Fun and fair actually go together for me. That as long as it's like, in the end, it's like the rules can go out the window as long as people are having fun and it feels fair. And so they go together for me as well. And there is another one I can't recall actually what the third one is, and I don't know why it's flown out my brain. But for me, and it's encouraging. So I said before about safety is one thing, and that's good so that you feel safe and respectful. But there's another thing when people can be not encouraging. Some can be actively bullying, because there is that. Some people can be actively denigrating to other people. And that's pretty clear-cut when it comes to it. But I'm actually very much about encouraging that sense of, I love that. That was fantastic. And people like really encouraging others for the really good choices they make, or the role-playing actions they take, or just in general, particularly for people who are veterans supporting new players. I really want an encouraging table so that people have that sense that things are, it's not just safe, but it's also I can do things, I can try things, I can, which is what this whole game is so much about. So for me, all of these things I've talked about, particularly the behavior ones at the end, but when you're talking about the rules or the style of play or how long you're going to play, it's about expectations. And I feel that a lot of this idea of getting players to come to your table, or the story or the game that you want to play as a group, is to be able to be very clear about your expectations and so that they know it, but also Once you've got that, it comes to the second part, and it's about listening and what are the player expectations. I've talked a lot now, so I might pass to you. What do you think so much about that so far anyway, about that idea of expectations?
It's there's a lot to unpack there in terms of absolutely. I think just to bring it all the way back to like defining what a tabletop experience is, like a tabletop role-playing game is a collaborative, first and foremost, storytelling experience. It is a game, and not a game that can be won or lost, but nevertheless, it is a huge investment of time and energy, and especially a campaign. And I think we are more so talking about campaigns because the one-shot experience, everybody kind of gets on board, and it's not a huge commitment to just go, okay, well, maybe I'm not a huge sci-fi guy, but I'm willing to try Alien Roleplay Game or the Altered Carbon System or whatever it might be, because you just want to try something different, and there's not a huge amount of investment. When it comes to a campaign, all of this hits home so much more. And yes, absolutely, as a dungeon master or a games master, you are putting a lot of your creative energy into prep and setting this up. And as long as you can be open and honest about how you intend to run the game, what sort of tone, theme, genre, and people are on board, and you keep checking in as well, not just session zero. I think we're isolating a section of session zeros here, because you also touched on like the safety side of things. So there's the game side of it, and then there's the collection of people side of it. So there's a group of people getting together for a common goal, which is to have fun. And yes, so there needs to be this fairness. There needs to be this understanding that people are going to be coming in at different experience levels, not just
coming in at different times.
Coming in at different
Speaking
times.
of coming in,
Perfect timing.
Fluid and lovely to what a excellent interjection.
oh, I do apologise. I've had some issues here.
Okay.
Due to technical difficulties, Thea has been joining us, is entering the room now.
Thea is entering the room. Now, Thea does not have her camera right on right now, but do we have a screen to switch to so I can jump in on camera?
I'm glad you spoke before you flicked your screen on, because now I am so ready to do the transition. Thank you.
Are we ready? Are we going to count this in?
We'll try.
Yeah. 3,
All right.
2, 1. And welcome,
That
Thea.
was almost flawless. That was so...
Hello. Look at that. I do apologise both to my wonderful companions and also everybody here in chat. I had no internet, and when I have no internet, I have no phone. I have realised how dependent I am on connectivity, but it's a pleasure to be here. I did catch a little bit of your chat.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Glad you can make it.
Oh, belated, but
what did you catch?
Yeah, so I just got a little bit about you talking about sort of the safety at the table and the importance of being very open, and I think that willingness to be open with your players and the importance of that, because I think that genuine connection really does help when you're bringing a table together. Am I on message? How am I doing here?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we both had a bit of a chat about our experience. We talked a bit. I talked a lot, actually. I started off with a bit of the intro and the idea of expectations, about knowing yourself first. Some of the expectations I have when I come to a game as well. There's been some really interesting points brought up in chat as well, which we haven't even had a chance to dive into. But it was really starting that point of expectations before we even get to a session zero, just to be able to call in. So that's, for me. What else, Jared, have you thought of as well, that what we talked about so far?
Yeah, I think the safety aspect leads into what we have touched on massively across the series, which has been making sure that everyone is on the same page in terms of tone and theme and things like that, because the storytelling side of things, you can't fully, and nor should you, like we've said, vet players or like interview them and get a full profile and dossier so that you never touch on anything that could be uncomfortable or anything, because D&D and role-playing game, the experience, once you've hit that stride and you've got that flow and that understanding and everything, it is a wonderful and sometimes therapeutic space to step out of yourself, be a little bit silly, be a little bit creative, and all along the way just make some really cool memories with a bunch of cool people. And like, who doesn't want that? So as long as we all keep that end goal in mind of just having fun in a really unique way, then yeah, I think we need to respect each other's time. Both players and dungeon masters need to understand that it's not just about you and your goals in terms of what you want to have fun. There is time for that. It may not necessarily come up in a session where you get to do the cool thing that your ranger can do and use its hunting tracking abilities, but you play enough sessions and you certainly will. And that's just about being like, your presence at the table holds more value than you might think. And if it is a respectful, kind, collaborative, encouraging, as Ian, you've been saying, this encouraging, hey, that's awesome, or, you know, just contributing and saying, wouldn't it be cool if you use, you know, wizard, if you did this, or bard, maybe you could charm our way into the chapel, or something like that. You're still there and you're contributing. You don't have to be acting through your character and doing the cool character in-game thing all the time. And a good GM should just be happy that people are there, as well as being able to set those expectations, being like, okay, well, this is what I want to achieve. This is the experience I'm curating and designing. Are you okay with that? And how much fun can we have with that? And be open-minded to bend and twist it a little bit so that it does maybe align with other people's ideas of what that is. So yeah, it's a whole nuanced thing.
Yeah. Can I actually, I guess, run on a bit from something you've mentioned there? Because I think something that's really important when we're talking about expectations is what shapes your expectations. And I think this kind of comes into how you expect a table to run and how you enjoy a table. And I'm thinking, you know, as a DM, who do you model yourself after? You know, who do you role play as a DM? Because I think sometimes if you've seen games where DMs are very open, are very collaborative, they're there to have fun, they're willing to be vulnerable, then I think that you might tend to follow that style. And I'm thinking of DMs like Brendan Lee Mulligan, you know, Matt Mercer, Bria Iyengar, those sort of people who make it really clear that they are working with their players. I wonder sometimes whether if people have a different view. So some of the more old school, and I say old school because it's, you know, it could have come from any time, where the DM is more of this authoritative figure, you know, and you may have talked about this before, but almost setting up that this is a competition between DMs and players. And I think we've seen games like that as well, not in as broad a media as I think lately we've seen a lot of D&D, you know, Twitch and streams and that. But I think maybe if you grew up in the days before there was live play D&D, where you just got to see DM players, if the influential figures of the people who DM'd your early games perhaps had a certain style, you might think that's how it's supposed to be, and maybe that doesn't fit every player.
Yeah.
Because I know, Ian, you sort of played from primary school through, and I played quite young as well. And I think sometimes when you're young and inexperienced, you can act in a certain way as a DM because you think that's how you should act. And that's not always helpful. I don't know if you've seen that. I know I've seen that in some sort of games.
It's really good to bring that up. I mean, I've been playing, I kind of wish it was since primary. It was since high school for me, actually. It was about year 7, so right on the cusp. And it was interesting because the people I played with were all the same age. So there was that kind of young teen of like, wow, this is amazing. And let's just try stuff. Yeah. So we didn't have years of experience in terms of emotional depth to draw on. So I'm sure there were some very silly, youthful, teenage boy kind of games that we had. But I still remember some of them as like really impactful. But it's like what you said, there are some expectations we had. There were some things that worked really well where we just knew we came in and you had the expectations of, we're all here, we bring something to eat, for example. We know, back then we could play all night because we were at school, and so it was on a weekend. You could play overnight, and I miss those days, not the next day, but those days.
Those nights.
That's it. It was phenomenal, like falling asleep at 4 a.m. after just like, you're like, okay, we've got to stop. Yeah.
Well, and being young enough to get away with that and go to school.
That's it. But there were other things about also just what was fun at the table and trying things out. But there were some times that things came up. And there's one particular incident that I've mentioned before, I'll say briefly here, about two good friends of mine who played, but as we grew, so this was after a couple of years of playing at least, and it was late high school. And there was a bit of personal stuff going on outside in their relationships with people they knew and things like that. And so there was a bit of a rivalry there. And in the game, it started to show. And there was a point where one of them basically it came down to one of them got the chance to
do something unpleasant
get one
to
up
another.
on the other one.
Yeah.
And because one actually tried to get on them, and then it got back and forth till it became it escalated to a point of no return.
Yeah.
And he was literally deciding whether or not to torture the guy. And the guy who was being tortured, his character anyway, he got up. He said, "I'm done. That's it. I'm out of here." And he walked out. He never joined that group of game. We actually had to split the group because of that and have different games. And I was too young to know how to deal with that. I was also non-confrontational because I thought, can we just work this out? And it was like, also you're teenagers and they're just, the hormones are just ridiculous. And it was something linked to that. And since then, I don't think they've spoken much ever since.
Yeah, it's a shame.
And that's something I really don't want to have at my table. Actually, was a formative experience for me, particularly coming into professional GMing, how to ensure people keep things at the door. It's like, this is a space we should have. We can leave the world outside. There can be some therapeutic elements of this for sure, where we get a chance to explore things, but we know coming in, the point of this is to have fun, and that we leave it at the end of the day and we can go and we can talk about things. Yeah, absolutely. I think I'm so glad that I'm not glad to have had that experience, but I'm so glad that I've learned from that experience and that it opened my eyes to this is what I want at the table and what I want to communicate to players who are coming in. This is one of my expectations. If you've got a grudge with someone in here, leave it at the door, because otherwise we're not having a game. It's just,
Yeah, and I think that ties into some of the comments when people were making in chat, having mixed tables of different ages and different levels of maturity, and what you can what's acceptable at the table, or what you agree as a group to accept at the table. Because I think some of the people have said they've got teen players and adult players. I don't feel comfortable if I have teen players with any kind of flirting.
Okay.
Sure.
Oh yeah.
I think it's just, or any, like, even between the adult players, it's just like, for me, no, I'm very uncomfortable with that.
That's fair.
And there's sort of, things about adult concepts coming up when you have those mixed games, which I think is really important with expectations and, what you're comfortable playing with. And it varies with groups. I was thinking with role models as well, some of the some game shop games that I've seen, which is, where a lot of people get to access the live D&D, and also some sort of like big group type sessions. I've seen the range of DMs, and I've seen a lot of new players come in, and I wonder sometimes everybody has a different DM style, and as long as you are not hurting people and everybody is open and accepting, then that's valid. But I have seen people that have a more of an authoritative kind of directive style as a DM. Ian Dog is tearing up the couch again. Some people have more of an open style, and I wonder if the first games you see are with those authoritative directive DMs, if you think that's how it should go, that primacy bias kind of thing.
I guarantee it. And I'd say, Jared, for you, what were some of your influences as well as a GM? Like, who were you, like, was it first you played, or was it anything?
Yeah, like I've been a forever GM since the beginning. Like, my first actual contact with an RPG product was someone who was experienced and knew what their character was, but needed someone to GM. So I was just floundering my way through it. But like I've said in the past, my first contact with role playing as a hobby has been forum roleplay. And I don't know how much I dove into it about how over our break over the new year I was trying to get into play by post or forum role playing again, and having been put through a vetting process, a very clear, well-defined, scrupulous vetting process where you have to participate in the Discord, you have to do so many posts, then you get approved as a new member, not just you're an active member, not just someone who's joined in, because they want someone who's committed, and they need that, because in that sort of very slow play by post sort of thing, it is a huge investment just in terms of scope of time. So like, you might spend an hour a week, really, or not even that, putting your posts up overall, but you are looking forward to other people collaborating and being a part of something. So there is a big amount of commitment that comes to that. So an equal amount of process and due course needs to happen. So I was very accepting of that, and you have to submit writing samples, and they have to be up to a certain quality, and they have to make sense, and they have to fit with the prompts they've given you, and you need to demonstrate an ability, because they are asking for people to read write at a high ability, at an advanced level, and they have every right to, and it's transparent. It's not that they're going to get you in and then mock you and make fun of you and say, oh my goodness, look how horrible this is, or hey, that's not good enough, do better. The expectations are set, and you know what you're getting yourself into. And I'd gone through the process. I'd verified myself by being active. I had written up my samples, and some of it was good enough, some of it didn't quite fit, because I wasn't quite sure. I just tried something on, and they didn't really enjoy it. Or approve of it. And so I had to decide then and there, okay, well, this has been quite the process. I've come this far. Do I keep committing to this? And I decided that at that stage, I didn't want to commit any further. But it wasn't because of anything that was done to me. It was the path laid before me, and I was able to make that decision. So to bring this to a more topical side of the discussion, everybody needs to be aware that there's a different group and a different table that is going to be run differently for everybody who plays the hobby. And in the chefing world, we say that like there's a different recipe for every person who makes that recipe. The way that you like to do things is absolutely personal and wonderful to you, and some people are going to like that. And the way you make your spaghettis is going to be really enjoyable for some people, and it might not be what other people are used to. And what's nostalgic for you and what really hits home is maybe your mama's cooking and things like that. That's the thing, is just because you've been in a group in the past, maybe in school and things like that, and you might be getting back into the hobby, or you just happen to find a really good bunch of people online, or whatever it may be, that doesn't mean that when you go to a convention it's going to be the same, or when you try a new game store, move to a new location, like our friend Atul, who's in Japan. He didn't just pop down to a game store and start playing with the local players there, and when he did, he got a little bit of a RPG culture shock, and he's like, hey, look at all my dice, and they were like, what the hell? So you just don't know what you're getting yourself into, and having that open-mindedness that you can try on new things and be open to that, but don't put yourself through that, because I've definitely heard people say to me, oh, well, I'm not really enjoying the way that this is done, or the way that the GM handles this sort of thing, but I guess it's better than not playing at all. So just to talk about the sort of perhaps sad side of what we are talking about, leaving a game is okay. And it's not necessarily GM's responsibility, although it does seem to default to that, and removing a player because of unsavory behavior. Well, I don't want to dive into that, because we're not really talking about the clickbaity problem players thing that goes out there. But when it is just getting to the stage where the fun is being put to the side or being overshadowed by either outside things or in-game things, some adult conversations, or I should say some mature conversations, need to take place. And that isn't a difficult thing to do. I've had to do it, and
I think it can be a difficult thing to do.
Yeah.
I think we might be underselling it to say it's not difficult, because it is. It's a difficult conversation.
Did I say not difficult? I meant to say.
Yeah.
It is a difficult thing to do, and I've had to do it at stages in my life where I was nowhere near as mature and as grown and self-aware as I am now. So, like, if you aren't having fun, try and communicate that. If you don't feel comfortable, unfortunately, biting the bullet and stepping away from the situation that is making you uncomfortable may be the play. But again, we've talked so much early on in this episode about preventing that, setting up an open, collaborative communication between GMs and players. And I say players again, it's just everybody at the table.
Yeah.
The title of Game Master doesn't need to come with this authoritative thing.
GMs are players. That's the thing.
GMs are a player as well. And like you were saying, Thea, there can be this adversarial sort of style of game. But and I love running that style of game, and to think of a popular media that's actually done that is, I think, the most recent campaign in Stranger Things, where it was the older kids in their Dungeons and Dragons group, right? It was very much this, are you good enough to be in our group? And like they did it in a storytelling way. And it was this thing where they've prepared this whole thing. But like early on, Dungeons and Dragons and Stranger Things was, hey, I've really done this cool thing, guys, and like everybody's there to like fight the Demogorgon and like do the thing together. And it was all about team building, whereas it's very, very different in the later seasons. So yeah, that could be someone's idea of what it could and should be like, is like there is this badass overlord of the game world and you must defeat everything that they throw at you. And that is a perfectly valid way to play, but that does not come without respect and respecting a game master and what they're trying to achieve. They are trying to achieve a difficult challenge game experience, and to not respect the players and be like, I'm going to just throw the entire monster manual at you and you're going to like it. People don't have to do that.
And I think the thing that you're saying there is that everybody's got to be aware that that is what's happening and happy with that and accepting. You know, if you choose, it's this concept of informed consent pretty much is, this is the game that I'm going into and I understand that the DM is going to try and kill my character. Cool. I enjoy that. Not everybody enjoys that. And the other thing I wanted to pick up just briefly from what you were talking about is when that kind of groups can kind of, the dynamic can get away from the people in the group. And by that, I mean where everybody's starting to feel trapped, where you've got players saying, oh, well, I'm not really enjoying this style of game, but it's better than not playing. And then when you have DMs or GMs saying, oh, I don't really feel comfortable running this kind of game, or I'm not comfortable with the relationships and what the players are asking and what their expectations are. But everybody starts to feel trapped and nobody talks about it.
Yeah.
And I think that's where these unhelpful, potentially toxic dynamics can develop, where it becomes adversarial because the communication isn't there. And I think that's a key theme for all of us that we enjoy is being able to communicate. And Ian, I know you're good at that.
Well, actually, there's something I'm really glad you brought that from both what you both been saying. So I've been reading the chat as well. Thanks, guys, for pitching in there too. Sammy had said something about actually still trying, can it be a DM be at fault if they're trying to learn how to DM and yet they can't really get the structure right in the story? It's not a fault. It's literally, actually, it's a really good point you brought up there. And I think it's so good putting that out to people as an expectation. You did exactly that with the Star Trek Adventures thing to say, guys, we're going to try this game. I don't know the rules. I'm playing it as I go. And you know what? Shall we learn together? And I think bring that. And if you have the communication side of things, like you're saying, having a safe place to talk that you can bring up things to say, how do you want to play?
Yeah.
And that people can say, if they're in a safe space where they feel they are heard, so listening's such a huge part of it, and the encouragement side of it. If they feel they're being heard, then they would feel comfortable to be able to say, guys, okay, perfect example. I've just been moving house, had big jobs at work, finishing off a couple of other projects on the side, and I've got a cold and I'm recovering from it. I need to take a break. I'm out. I'm tapped out. And everyone's like, oh crap, are you okay? And that's like usually the first thing I'll hear, which is really nice. Setting up that kind of space is crucial, and it's not a big thing. It's little by little, by just saying, guys, I want an open space where we all feel we can talk. And I know what you're saying there, and also you, Jared, and guys in the chat. There can be an unconscious peer pressure that comes in to belong, that you have to be there. And for people who are less confrontational or less confident in saying this, you may feel like you have to be there. And I'm so of the opinion of the belief, if it's not good for you today, have a rest, stay home, get well, because we'd rather you be here when you're well, or if you've got too much going on, step out if you need to. And I've had, and being able to encourage that sense of you do belong, you don't have to be here to belong, and that's okay. You still do if you step away. I had a group of mates, my olds, they're actually this high school mates, and I'd been gaming with them regularly up until about 18 months ago. And then I just said, guys, for me, it's just a lot because I've got the professional GMing, other things coming in here, and I won't be able to commit as much. And it was sad, but they got it. And so they've been gaming since then, and I keep in touch now and then. And it's really nice to have a place where you feel like you belong. You don't have to show up. That's the important thing. Setting those expectations, that was a key thing to be able to say to people that you let us know if you can't make it. Let us know. If you can't, that's all good. We'll work around that. Is your table the kind of table to say, we need minimum 5 players every single time and the GM to be able to go ahead, and that's what we're going to do. If we don't, we won't go ahead. We'll move on. Or you have to be here for this game. It's like, that's a big expectation. So I think those expectations, it's actually being clear about what are hard expectations and what are soft expectations, I think is a really important thing. What do you guys think about that?
I actually think the really key part of that is self-awareness as well, and you've illustrated it really beautifully, and is having the awareness of not only of this is all getting a bit much for me, I might need to take a break, but also having the awareness of your response to that. If you're not the person taking a break, or if you're the person who, if you're in the group and you've really, this is an incredible experience, it's this contact that you have that keeps you going, you could feel angry or resentful or just sad if somebody can't make it. And having self-awareness, I think, can help you navigate those emotions and those responses in a healthy, helpful way, rather than perhaps it leading to resentment or just dipping. I mean, I think I lost a player a few years ago. They're still alive. They just left the game. But because they weren't comfortable talking about that they had a lot going on and they didn't really enjoy where the game was going. So they just dipped. They said, I probably won't make any more, and then left the server and, unfriended us all. And we're like, that was a shame. But I think it goes both ways. As the group, I think as the person who might need to take a break or change, I think you need to be self-aware. As the DM, I think you need to be self-aware of how your responses are, and as we've talked about, expectations. But also I think as a group of players, you need to be self-aware of how you're responding to different things. And going back to that safety, because in a safe group, you can feel much more comfortable talking about that. What do you guys think of that?
Yeah, I've all of late last year was definitely talking about, pretty much all through our episodes of last year, my wonderful Spelljammer group. So it was my game that I was running for fun because I wanted to run a campaign in that world. And I forged a group at my local game store, and I've met some local people who are absolutely wonderful, invited old players back into that game. And it's been wonderful meeting new people who have come and gone and had old allies, even people who have played alongside Sammy Slick. And it's been an absolute wonderful blast of a campaign, and definitely found that wonderful space with these people. And we have not played since Christmas or New Year's. We took a break, obviously, for the holidays. And this is always a trepidatious thing with a role-playing group, is taking an extended break, losing that routine, and then also just the timing of it all. The new year, where people are now starting uni courses or new jobs or moved offices and can't quite make it back from the city in time. These have all been realities for us recently, and that has meant that we have not played, and it's been a long gap. And there is this space inside of me that feels a bit of sadness, a little bit of loss, a little bit of lack of closure, because we were so goddamn close to finishing. It's Curse of Strahd all over again. It's all right, guys.
So 2 years, we'll be back
5 years
for it.
from now, we'll go to the Hunts of Valley and we'll finish this over a massive 16-hour
Our
game.
house.
I hope not.
Fantastic.
But
Who
yeah,
knows?
but what we are doing is we're using this wonderful long weekend that we've been given over Easter, and we are playing something, not Spelljammer, but something.
Yep.
And this is actually a
Right.
tradition that we
Yeah.
did, and this is exactly what you guys have just hit home, and this is exactly how true this is. That group still exists. Those people and those friendships and those relationships still exist, and they are
Yeah.
invaluable. And no matter what we play, no matter how frequently we get on, whether we're jumping on and playing some Baldur's Gate 3 together, whether we're playing some Helldivers or some other video games, whether we are playing Dungeons and Dragons and Spelljammer, or what we're going to be playing as a one-shot is Dragonbane,
Cool.
there is the value that well-forged group is really what matters at the end of the day. It doesn't really matter what we play and what we get into. And like, we're all keen to play the Avatar roleplay system. We're all keen to just, other people want to DM. And we're just excited to have that group of people. And so I think just to bring home exactly everything that we've said is, I've had people come and go from that group. There was no angst when somebody left. I've had people who were there for session 1 and session 6 and very few others. They are still part of the online Facebook group chat because they are part of the damn group. And they need to know what's happening, because when they do eventually return, they need to stay in the loop, have the inside jokes, all of that stuff. Because the awareness of including these people and how important it is to, even if you're not participating, you still belong. That is a huge thing. And I'm so glad you guys brought it up, and that I had an absolutely wonderful example of that, because that has also been my Curse of Strahd group. We've had, I unfortunately couldn't make, but we've had now the 4th wedding of the people not within the group, as cool as that would be, but from each person as people have started getting married, this group has always been invited to the damn wedding, and it's amazing.
Yeah.
So that's how important these friendships were. It wasn't just a gaming group. We really, really, really became lifelong friends. So absolute what you can shoot for, but at the end of the day, we're just trying to get together and have some fun and tell stories. So don't take it too seriously, but understand that you need to respect your time, and sometimes that means not participating, as sad as that can be.
Yeah.
There's room for that open expectation. I think that's an important thing. We talked about before a lot about the expectations that we have, and I think that is the number one thing if you're bringing a game to people. So, and we've talked a little bit about player expectations. I think that's actually where that's the next thing I'd have, is when I come in, when I'm proposing a game idea, is then I've done all that. I've had the expectations. I've given the basics, because I don't want to bore the hell out of someone and talk at them for an hour, which I am known to do when I'm learning.
No.
None
None of us do that.
Not here.
But to be able to say, what do you think? What do you think of these particular things? And actually those particular points about the story that we're going to tell, how often and long we play, how long it's going to go for, what are the rules set we're going to play, but also about the behavior at the table. What do you think? And just bring those particular points on board. And this is where it comes so much into, it really isn't the GM's game. This is our game. And you don't even know what that's like until all of the players have come together and start playing. That changes the nature of the game straight away. It becomes that group. They change the nature of the rules and everything because of everyone who's in there. So that point where you get a chance to talk to each individual player about what they want, they'll bring things in I don't expect. I just and it can be simple, and it can be, oh, I didn't consider that. That sounds really good. Yeah, let's do that. Or it can be, oh, that's really different to what I expected. How can we make that work? That might be challenging to something that I know, my expectations as well. So it's like, can we make this work? Or it could be simply like, whoa, okay, I like that, but not for this game. And like you said about that being okay to say no, definitely having players to be able to say that, for GMs to say, actually, this isn't, this doesn't work for me as well.
Yeah.
If you can set that up in that first, you want to, I think it's that whole thing, isn't it, of that initial expectation, setting that up, being honest about that from the beginning. it can be tough if you're young. It can be tough if you're inexperienced, because you want people to like the game you have and you want people to come on board. But at the same time, you don't want to compromise the things that make you feel safe, that make you feel like that you're going to enjoy the game, that you're going to play with the other people. So take time, I think, is probably the best thing. The listening side of it, listen to players. And if you're not sure, one of the best rules I've had to go on by, if someone gives me something that I'm like, that is so outside what I expected to hear. Curse of Strahd, but yes, we are all unicorns. Okay, right.
I want to play that game.
So
Yeah.
I'll say, that sounds wild. Can I get back to you? Because literally, it was advice I've had in the past. It's like, sleep on it. If there's any major decision you have to make that you're like, I don't know if I can decide on this because of the implications or consequences, can I sleep on it? Can I come back to you? And it's like, why not? You don't have to say yes straight away. That's another thing. You don't have to go, it's not binary. It's like yes or no. Just like, I'm going to have a break. Let me, wow, how do we make this? Because I'm also want to bring that up to the other players. Are they keen to play, you know, unicorn group, take down Strahd? I mean, like, whatever it would be. So, yeah, I think that's important. I think it's really nice as well for players to be able to say, look, I can't decide on that now. Can I get back to you? And you're like, yeah, sure, it's okay. So, it's interesting. But having the player hearing that and adapting where it can work, where you see it can, because of things that you know about your expectations, which is why I think we were saying before, it's so important for you to know your expectations first. If you don't know that, you'll be possibly confronted by things that you didn't expect and you may not know how to deal with. You might say yes to and you'll regret it later, or you might say no to and it might actually shut people down. Which is not the best.
Yeah, it's that whole corporate kind of thing. As much as I hate the corporate talk, but it's, hey, that's great, let's park it. So we're gonna write this down. I'm gonna take note, but we're not going there right now
because this isn't the right place for it. But we will talk about it. Let's do that. Yeah,
absolutely.
So acknowledging good ideas and not necessarily like when you like in a session and you're running with the absolute live in the moment real time improv carousel. I would like to put it. It's yes and it's okay, cool, how do we make that work? And you sometimes just go absolutely bonkers with it. But when it comes to a whole campaign idea, and again it is the weight that comes with, okay, I'd be down for a Unicorn Vampire Hunters raid castle Ravenloft. I don't know that I love the idea for a whole campaign. Like, there's a lot of like funny logistics and like little things. So many questions that I have. So let me think about it. And if I can't think of a way to work, maybe we pitch it as you're all unicorns and you're normally just people, but you can do. Man, you see now, you gave me 5 seconds to think about it, and it's
exactly the talk.
It's coming together. So,
how it goes.
It's like that's exactly it. Just the value of you guys talking about that and me just thinking about it completely as a separate space for a couple of seconds was there. It was getting places, but that's exactly it. Is we want to do cool, wacky, amazing, big, adventurous things. Sometimes we want to tell real, intimate stories, and just also what you guys were saying with like the adult themes and like, you know, flirting and that kind of behavior at a table. Like if someone's like, I go and like, you know, charm the barmaid. It's like, okay, am I just like, and you as a GM need to know that you do have this authority. It's not about flexing or an ego and in terms of an authoritative thing. It is a responsibility. And this is something I wanted to quickly flick back to Sammy. When you said, is it the DM's, what did you say? Is it the DM's fault when they haven't got the experience? Yeah, is it the fault? No.
Yeah.
I want to be very, very clear, and something that I've learned a long time ago is fault and blame versus responsibility. And the best way it was explained to me is it's not your fault if it rains outside, but it is your responsibility if you don't take an umbrella or a raincoat. So whether or not you get wet, the consequences you suffer for choosing, firstly, you've chosen to leave the house and go into an environment where you're going to go, yes, if you are aware of the thing, you can go out and you can get wet. You might choose to go back and then bring an umbrella so you don't get as wet. Or you might do what I like to do and just wing it and go on the motorcycle and go out to Collecticon and get a little bit wet and not be bothered to stop.
Because you got a leather jacket. Yeah.
Well, yeah, but like I could put my rain gear on and get less wet, but I rocked up to the
this
con.
story is becoming less metaphorical and
It's a little bit personal.
experiential.
But this is the thing, is I made it. No, well, it's just a metaphor. Like I rode out to a convention over an hour's ride on a motorcycle, and I got a little bit rained on. So could I have stopped and put on my rain gear and been less miserable when I got to the con? No, I rode it out, and I made that choice. So as a metaphor for like what we're talking about, you don't have to ride out a completely uncomfortable game. And at the same time, the idea of fault and blame and responsibility is that yes, you can be responsible for how you handled that. If you went in and you said, guys, we're going to run this huge epic gothic horror Curse of Strahd campaign, and then you're sitting there going, I don't really know how this works. Or if you don't say, hey, can somebody like maybe help me with the rules or something like that, that takes a level of understanding and things like that. But it's not about fault. You are simply inexperienced, whether that is how to communicate or whether it is the actual skill of a dungeon master. If you're able to just feel comfortable enough to be like, hey guys, look, I really want to run this cool thing. It looks really exciting to me. I know that you guys might have played for a couple of years and you guys really want to play Curse of Strahd. This may not be your GM who's been running games for you for 5 years. I'm very new to this, so I'm going to do my best.
Yeah.
And I think saying that...
Yeah, and that's okay.
I'm sorry for jumping in, because I think that's a really important point. I'm also getting aware of the time too.
Yeah.
But does this sound like to you, for me, is about if you set up those expectations at the beginning of, guys, this is a learning experience for all. We're all learning from this as well, and so I might, change as well. Getting older, I've learnt that. Knowing to say, if I was younger, that would be advice definitely to give, is that we're learning from this at all. We're going to develop the rules as we go. I think that's a really good thing for role-playing games in general, just saying that we're learning from this. And I may ask for help at times. So I think, that is going to be so important as well to do. And, I hope that helps you, Sammy, as well. And Jared, thanks for putting it so eloquently there about just that sense of expectation and responsibility rather than blame. Get rid of blame from the table. Say that's not one of the things I have at my table. I don't have blame. People shouldn't be blaming each other at all at this table. No
blame for good intentions. I think that there is still, when we talk responsibility, if you are not acting in good faith, then that is a different thing.
Because they're going against expectations that have been set. Yeah, absolutely. Exactly. Which is taking responsibility. Absolutely.
Yeah, I like to always draw that out when we talk about responsibility, because we're, as a group, I think, very into that vibe of, you didn't intend something bad to happen, or, you didn't know better, then that's fine. But I think it is really important to also state that if you do know better, and you're choosing to act in a way that is contrary to the group or contrary to expectations, then that has consequences that might be you are asked to leave the table.
May ye have full wrath. 100%. Like don't be an ass.
That was so really nice to wrap it up on as well, to have that as well, just reminding people that you have that choice about what you have at the table. It's not a fault. It's something of, okay, I've learned something here. This is something I need to do, which is kind of part of what we do with role-playing games. It's an evolving thing, isn't it? Because we have, how many house rules have you actually started to develop over time with that group that you have that actually went, this makes it play better, this is what suits us, and having that space to say it, I think, is the important thing. But on that note, we are definitely out of time. We are. And Jared and Thea, it's been a pleasure. It's been so good talk about this. I feel like in some ways we've only kind of scratched the surface about that. Guys in the chat, thank you so much for some really wonderful personal experiences and things you wanted to share and questions that brought this out. This is vital. Thank you. And we are very much looking forward to speaking to you guys again very soon. But to give you a bit of our insight for the weeks to come, we're doing shorter seasons this year, and this is the final one for season 1.
Short season.
Doesn't mean that we're going to be gone for good. We're going to be back each week with either a re-look at one of our previous episodes, or there may be the odd cozy special where we just have somewhere to just chat and relax. And then we will be back for season 2 this year from the 2nd of May. 2nd of May, we're coming back. So it's easily a big stretch of a few weeks, basically, where we won't have this regular content like this. But keep an eye out for those look backs at some of these episodes and some cozy specials. I think there are some already in the planning. So
absolutely. And we will post notes about those in the Discord. And once we actually figure out how to use the calendar function to do one-offs, we will do that as well. I say that because that's something I need to figure out. And of course, there's always our YouTube if you want to catch up, because we are having a break. We can expect to start seeing the season 1 of 2014 maybe popping up as well. So we're still
2014?
here.
2014. What year is it?
We're going back. We're going back in time. When
I lost power, it was because my time machine.
Damn you! I told you needed to replace the flux capacitor.
I'm sorry. I know the flux capacitors
isn't
all good.
Good.
Go with it. Yes, and 2014. I'm
2014.
in.
It could be 2024.
All right.
Speaking of,
it's been a night.
Transitioning. Are we rating anyone tonight?
We
as well?
are.
Speaking of stepping into another realm and space and time and place and things like that,
we are going to drop our friends, Dice Legends, who are alive.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool bunch of peeps.
Yeah.
Very cool bunch of peeps.
Alrighty.
Yeah. That's us.
Jared,
Awesome.
I think you should out. Yeah.
Thanks everyone once again for joining this ongoing conversation about the value of role-playing games. We love you all. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for everyone for sharing. Sammy, I'm glad I could help you. And just a shout out to Jason V, who messaged me during the week with his own reflections on this. So thank you for sharing your journey with me. It has been wonderful in my reflection and what I brought to this episode. So good night for now, everyone. We will see you back with season 2 of 2024 in May. And if you're watching on YouTube, it's just the next video in the next playlist. So enjoy. Yeah. Bye for now.
Yeah. Let it autoplay. Yeah. All right.
Take it easy.
See you guys.
Enjoy. We'll see you soon.
See you soon.
Mwah.